Hey everyone.
Hey, look who I found.
Wandering the halls.
And I thought, we should talk to our folks. I look forward to seeing everybody every night, mostly this one. And we just finished dinner. And
Speaking of folks, we need to update people.
update on my parents. My dad was confused, and then I heard there was CBD gummies laying around the house.
Yes, and he ate like almost a half a bottle of them because he did not realize what they were, and they had a small amount of THC in them, and yeah, it was a big mess. So there you go. Rather than eating one, he ate a whole bunch. So he thought he was in the desert.
All right. So building resilience, do not start with someone leaving THC gummies around the house.
You have to admit, it's one of the best stories I've ever heard.
All right. We hope you are healthy, that you're safe, that you're not too frustrated. We understand how frustrating this can be. And one of the strategies, yesterday was hard, something caught on fire on the stove. I'm like, what's that smell?
At this point, though, every day is just something that just makes me laugh.
Oh, no. 2 nights ago, I'm doing something on parenting for everybody. And unbeknownst to me, they put the baby downstairs and everybody's outside by the pool. And
we
the
thought
baby's
she was sleeping.
Screaming.
Oh,
the baby
God.
is screaming. And people on the live chat are going, why is the baby screaming?
And the only reason you couldn't hear the baby screaming is because you won't wear your hearing aids.
What?
So it's been, I'm sure you guys have the same experience, but it's been a zoo around here.
I think this is called decompensation.
Yeah. We are decompensating.
And then last night, I did a live chat on protected group immunity. Love that term. And right at the end, Chloe was cooking and the fire alarm went off.
And that wasn't the actual fire. So the fire alarm went off because of the smoke from something in the stove. But when we actually had a fire, the towel caught on fire on top of the stove, the fire alarm didn't go off. That's disturbing.
So we have no idea what's going to happen tonight. We are going to
No, we already had tonight. Tonight's done. We had parents that thought they were in the desert, that were not in the desert. We're good. We're done for the night.
We're going to teach you what we know about resilience so you don't kill each other. There's a little strategy I have whenever I go on a trip. Really works in a pandemic. So whenever I go on a trip, like we went to Europe, probably not going to do that for a while. I'm like, 10 things are going to go wrong when you go on a 2-week trip to Europe. So just start marking them down.
And don't get mad until
11.
Right. And it's a good strategy. I actually like that.
And so 4 things went wrong. So I had no reason to be upset. Now you're in a pandemic and you have the kids or you're alone. And it's like you should just give yourself, give your partner, give your children grace, at least for one meltdown a week. Mm-hmm. Now, yesterday there were meltdowns in my house, some of which I caused. But that's another story. Grace is so important. All right, so let's get to resilience. Tana was actually in an interview today. We're getting ready to do the marketing plan for her upcoming book, January 5th.
Yes.
The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child. It's great. I'm so proud of her.
And speaking of resilience, I think a lot of people who have been through a lot of things in life that have managed to come out the other side of it, there's these built-in things we do that are resilience related and we don't even realize it. I know my nieces do the same thing, and this is one example. When I would talk about the past and you're like, you need to write a book. And I'm like, why? This is not a big deal. Like everybody has this kind of stuff happen to them. Or my past wasn't that bad. So many people have it so much worse. This is not that interesting. That actually turns out, I actually read a study that says that that's one trait of resilient people. It sounds crazy, but they have this tendency to go, stuff happens. This isn't that big of a deal in the scheme of things or compared to other people. And they have this tendency in their minds as a survival tool to sort of minimize it in a way, but more or less so that they can manage it, right? And so
It's
an
also a
interesting
trait of post-traumatic growth, which is if I can survive this, so if you can survive the pandemic of 2020 and all the things going along with it, imagine what you can do. And so this is very important.
In fact, one of my mantras, I remember it used to be when I was going through a really hard time. I had surgery, a second surgery, and going through another treatment for the cancer while I was in nursing school. And it was really hard. I mean, I was taking this crazy load trying to finish early, and then that happened. And I just remember feeling like I wasn't going to finish at one point, but I developed this mantra that it's like, it's only 4 more months. I can do anything for 4 more months. And as long as I could put a time limit on it, it's like, I can do anything for 4 more months. And then at the end of that 4 months, it's like, okay, well, I can do anything again for 4 more months. But mantras like that were time specific for me were really helpful too.
Well, and even with the uncertainty of the pandemic, it's going to be over. All of them are. If you're thoughtful, if you're careful, it may only be a month or it may be 6. Whatever it is, how are you going to feel about how you acted at the end of it? And when it happened, and it really affected Amen Clinics, as the CEO, I kept asking myself this question. I still ask it, is how am I going to feel about myself in September?
Yeah.
Am I going to be proud of how I acted?
Yeah, and that's one of the things we actually talk to the kids about. I'm like,
So
you can't control this.
mindset is so important.
Right, and we told the kids the same thing. It's like you get to decide who you're going to be through this. Are you going to be helpful, or are you going to be hurtful? Are you going to be, in control or out of control of your behavior?
So what's number 2?
So this stuff happens. That was one. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. So what you focus on. And so resilient people have this tendency to focus on the positive things that they can pull from a bad situation. It's like they often have this idea that I'm better because this happened, or I'm a better person because of the things I've been through, or those types of views on tragedy are resilience minded. So it's really interesting. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. And if you can focus on, well, maybe I can turn this into something useful, or this is happening for a reason, or, those types of things are putting your attention in the right place.
So I love what you said, where your attention goes, where you bring your attention always determines how you feel. And Marty Seligman, he's considered the father of positive psychology. He talks about resilience. These are people, when they come through a stress, they have TLC. They see it as temporary, not going to last forever.
I can
just
handle
like you
anything
said.
for 4 months.
Local, it's not everywhere. Now, yes, we're in a global pandemic, but what happens in Orange County is very different than what happens in LA. It's
what
very
happens in
different
your
than
home.
happens in New York, and
Right.
very different happen on this street versus that street. So it's temporary, it's local, and it's changeable. That you can have an impact. And that's what I talked about last night with protected group immunity. You and your family can do very specific things, as opposed to we're going to wait for a vaccine, or we're going to wait to see if remdesivir or hydroxychloroquine or whatever is going to save us. What is it you can do? Temporary, local, changeable.
Yeah, no, I like that. And then I love your question. I learned this from you. Then what? So if you can keep your mind focused, then what means that you're focused on how is my behavior going to affect my situation or my thinking? Is my behavior going to get me what I want? If I do this, then what? So another way to say that is my behavior getting me what I want? So is this good for my brain? Is it bad for my brain? Is this good for my body or bad for my body? So then what?
So that means you're actually kicking in your frontal lobes. And we had a discussion today with the two older kids, Chloe, who's 16, Michael, boyfriend, is 17. And they've been together like a year
No, a year and a half.
a year and a half.
Yeah.
And so they began, and who knows what's going to happen, but they were talking a little bit about child rearing, and I'm a child psychiatrist, so I tried not to say much until I heard spare the rod and spoil the child. And I'm like, uh-oh. And so I actually did research.
And that's a common thing people think that.
I did research on, because people think that's biblical. That's actually not biblical. That verse is not in the Bible. It was actually from a poem by Samuel Butler talking about two lovers, talking about the gruesome things they were going to do to each other. And it was very
That sounds
interesting.
morbid.
And so I went to the verse in Proverbs, and it talks about not disciplining a child means you hate the child. And they use the word rod, but like a shepherd has a staff or a shepherd has a rod, it doesn't beat the sheep with the rod. What it does is it guides the sheep with the rods. So if you want to be effective as a parent, yes, you have to discipline children. If they started cursing at Tana, it wouldn't be good. There would be consequences. But when you're frustrated, ask yourself, then what? Is this going to help me raise a healthy child, a child that feels good about themselves, a child that is a productive member of society, or am I going to scare the child into behaving?
Right.
And it's just not effective. So when you're angry, your voice should go down. And what did Love and Logic teach you when you got angry? What did you say?
Never discipline when you're angry. So actually, what you would say is there are going to be consequences. I'll let you know what they are when I've had time to think about it. So buy time. And
Chloe hated that.
She hated it. She would rather me just do something in the moment. She hated the time in between when there was this thinking process and quiet. Yeah. So exactly.
All right.
And the last one is pain to purpose.
Well, I have one more after that.
Oh, well, good. So pain to purpose. We talk a lot about pain to purpose, but people who are able to take tragedy and turn it into something purposeful not only live longer, but they're happier. And so we always want you thinking, yes, you can't control, some of the things that happen in your life, and adversity comes for everyone at some point. Adversity doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are. It doesn't matter what color you are, how old you are. At some point in your life, adversity comes. And so having the mindset that I know it's going to come at some point, things are going to happen that are going to be hard, but I can use those things and be purposeful with them. So, yeah.
That is so important. What has the pandemic taught you? Patience. It's going to be okay. Do what you can do. And the last thing when it comes to resilient people is a concept I call brain reserve. It's how much extra brain tissue do you have to deal with whatever stress comes your way. And when we're born, if our moms were good to us when we were in their womb, we're actually born with a lot of reserve. But then life steals it. I mean, what you see is the older you get, the less reserve you have. If your parents fed you bad food, if you fell down a flight of stairs, if you played a contact sport, if you had an alcoholic father or mother, worse actually if it's the mother, then it's stealing your reserve. So an example I like to give is take two soldiers. I was an Army psychiatrist. Take two soldiers, put them in a tank, expose them to the same blast, the same angles, the same force, everything's the same. One of them walks away unharmed, the other one's permanently disabled. Why? It depends on the brain they brought into the accident. And the people that will thrive through the pandemic, it depends in part on the brain, the physical functioning of your brain that you brought into the pandemic.
Right, and that should make sense if you think about it. Why are so many people right now so focused on building their immunity? Because they know they're less likely to come down with COVID if their immune system is strong, correct? So we're taking supplements, we're doing all these things, we're doing more things than the things we should always be doing, but we're doing them more now because we have a reason to be fearful. So it stands to reason that that works physically, then wouldn't it stand to reason that it works mentally? So wouldn't it stand to reason that doing those same things, building that reserve with your brain would help protect you from, the psychological aspect of trauma?
Well, and we think of resilience in 4 circles. We always talk to you about our 4 circles. So there's biological basis for resilience. And in the end of mental illness, I talk about the bright mind's risk factors. So there's a biology to it. There's a psychology to it, much what you're talking about. There's a social circle. So if you are spending time with people like Chicken Little, where the sky is always falling and everything is always awful, and you're texting the latest conspiracy theories back and forth, and you're just constantly upset, it's not going to be helpful. And there is a spiritual circle, which is, why the heck do you care? What is your deepest sense of meaning and purpose? Why do you want to be better in September than now? And what are the things you can do?
I like it.
Well, thank you.
So hopefully you guys are doing well. You are resilient and managing the pandemic. And I don't know if your house is as crazy as ours, but at some point you just got to laugh.
Diane writes, my heart goes out to those children stuck at home in abusive situations.
Yeah.
It horrifies me. I worry about that every day.
Yeah.
That, after a pandemic, there's a much higher incidence of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is why we're here for you, to bring you some sanity. Not that I'm actually going to claim sanity, but
Not in this house.
But our prayers are with you. We hope you have a great evening.
Thank you.